As the flags flutter outside, inside some serious negotiating is taking place. Both Paris and Los Angeles want to host the 2024 Olympics. Only one can.
On our side, we've been very consistent over the last months that we bid only for 24 because we have some technical constraints for our project. This is a project built for 24, and we believe this is the best answer, also the best choice for the IOC to choose Paris for 24. So we continue to push in this direction.
The Paris team also feel they have sentiment on their side. 2024 will be exactly 100 years since the city last held the Olympics. French President Emmanuel Macron is keen to see the Games return to Paris. So much so, he's travelled to Lausanne personally to lobby the IOC.
Men's finals, 1,500-metre run.
LA's Olympic tradition stretches back to 1932 when the city first held the Games. In the midst of the Great Depression, it was the first time an Olympic village was built for athletes. It was a necessary addition, with many athletes simply too poor to stay anywhere else.
And the Oxford president finishes second.
85 years on, and both LA and the Olympics have changed. Money swirls around sport in a way athletes of the past couldn't possibly imagine. But the costs of hosting an Olympics have left many previous host cities hugely in debt. Both Paris and LA will utilise existing stadia or build temporary ones to decrease the chances of so-called white elephants. LA most recently hosted the Games in 1984 and believe it's their time again.
We have had two missions. One which is to bring America back to the Olympics and the Olympics back to America. And two, to bring Los Angeles back to the Olympics and hopefully the Olympics back to Los Angeles. We know that our Olympic dreams are alive and well.
Delicate negotiations will take place over the next few months as the IOC assesses which bid team is more open to the idea of hosting in 2028 instead of 2024. Offers will be made and deals will be struck. The final decision will be announced in Peru in September.
So joining me now to look a little closer at the bidding war is our very own Craig Copetas in Paris and Francis Reed in Los Angeles. Now, hello to both of you, but Craig, let's go ahead and start with you. Now, the IOC has said that this is going to be a win-win-win for Paris, Los Angeles and the IOC, but is it really?
Well, yeah, it gives the IOC a 10-year window to derail their gravy train. The fact that they've done this is going to keep some 95 IOC members. It will prevent them from having to travel around the world to visit potential host cities and living large off the fat of the land, which is what they've done, which is part of the process that has bankrupted many of the Olympic cities, and more importantly, forced many cities such as Boston and others to drop out of the bidding process. It's too expensive.
Okay, Francis, Craig has raised some very good points there, but the LA bid chief executive claims that 80% of the local population actually wants to host the bid. How accurate is that?
Yeah, like I said, it's hard to know 100%, isn't it? But I think that this 80% figure is something that's really been bandied around a lot. It's something that the International Olympic Committee really want to see, a commitment not just from the people putting the bid forward, but actually from the people living in the city. Do they have an actual passion for it? LA is a place where sport is very important. And so this whole thing about public support, really, really important for the International Olympic Committee to see whether LA has got that commitment. And I think the argument is here that the mayor has said, 80%, and that he's working really hard to try to get the other 20% on board, because, of course, in the past, lack of public support has been the undoing of certain Olympic bids, hasn't it?
Okay, now, Craig, you did talk about the economics of it, the aspects of it. There is the argument that the cost may be worth it or may not be worth it. In this case, though, do you think that it's really worth it to splash the cash for Paris, especially after the rough couple of years that the country itself has had? Is that going to be kind of a beacon of light for the public?
Look, the cost isn't worth it anymore for the Olympics. Sponsors are dropping out. Cities don't have the money. What has been talked about since the 90s, at the beginning of the IOC scandal back then around Salt Lake City and before, is that you select two dedicated cities and you put in two dedicated facilities, training facilities, TV facilities, for both the summer and winter games. That way you can channel more money to the athletes. It's easier for the broadcasting. You'll have training facilities in the off years, and the two cities always bandied about were Athens and Lillehammer in Norway for the winter games. But the IOC never liked this because it got in the way of their gravy train. The IOC, if you look at their past 3 or 4 games, the IOC has historically preferred to have games in totalitarian countries. The reason is they can go in there, there's no due diligence by the local authorities, and as what happened in Sochi in China and Beijing, the locals can spend as much money as they want and the population doesn't complain. I'm sure there's a lot of people at the IOC tonight who are a little nervous about Los Angeles because there are still some prosecutors there who would like to ask a lot of IOC members some questions going back to Salt Lake City. The IOC does not like going into areas where it does not have total control and tax breaks from the local community.
Okay, Francis, do you think that they should be nervous about Los Angeles then?
Not necessarily nervous. I think the whole thing is whether, you know, LA would get the first cycle of Olympics or the second cycle of Olympics, and, you know, is the waiting for that. It keeps going back to this public support, I think. I think that's been a huge, huge factor. And, you know, in waiting, would it lose some kind of momentum? Now, a lot of people in LA have said, well, look, if they get a later bid, it wouldn't be so much of a problem because then they would have longer to prepare. But you've got to remember, Los Angeles's bid is not based on, as we've talked about, you know, building brand new stadiums that are going to be there forever and ever. It's about building on the infrastructure that they already have here. If you look at the bid, it's half the price of Rio, you know, $5 billion, drop in the ocean compared to Rio, and the benefits of getting that back, they would be essentially doubling their money. So I think LA is a pretty safe bet, actually. And you know, when you look at the support for it here as well, I think it's still great. It's just a case of whether it'll be the first cycle, the second cycle, and will it lose any kind of momentum in that support if there's that kind of waiting period.
Okay, now, Greg, you say that it's too expensive to host these games. So what kind of solutions could there be then?
Well, I believe that in 10 years' time, we're going to be moving closer to 2 dedicated cities. And that's absolutely correct. LA and Paris have existing facilities. It will be a fraction of the cost of what it costs down in Brazil, where the IOC just a few days ago said no to helping the local organizers there crawl out of $40 million worth of Olympic debt, which the IOC helped create for them. The IOC is like a circus. It comes to town and then it leaves. While it's there, it's great. When it goes, it's awful. And I'll guarantee you one thing in all of this. Both Paris and LA, even though they have great existing facilities, it's going to end up costing them more than they think, because that's the way the Olympics work.
Now, Francis, speaking of circus, the bid actually comes at a very interesting time for America, with President Trump's America First policies changing the political landscape over there. So what role, if any, does the administration actually have in this whole process? And do you think that Trump will actually come out and take credit for it if LA actually do win the bid for 2024?
Probably is the answer. Normally does. But when you had his tweet just a few hours ago, he said, "I'm working hard to get the Olympics for the United States in LA. Stay tuned." You know, he's already tweeted that out this morning, which some would say perhaps he's already had a tip-off that it's kind of going to go ahead. Trump has already met with members of the International Olympics Committee, of course, and one of the things that he's then had to reassure them about is, you know, if people are coming from all over the world to America, is this proposed travel ban that, of course, that administration has been trying to implement and had, you know, various challenges to it, is that going to be a problem for the Olympics, the Olympic teams, the delegates, everyone else coming across? Apparently, the way has been smoothed, so that has all been sorted out. Donald Trump, of course, likes to win, and I'm sure that winning the Olympics would be one of those things that he would certainly like to check off his list.
Now, Craig, as a long-time resident of Paris, if they do get the Olympics for 2024, would you yourself actually attend?
No, I've covered every Olympics from Barcelona through Salt Lake City. I've kind of had my fill of the Olympics. I think I'll fall into the category of I'll put the home up for an Airbnb. And the other thing is, if look, let me tell you about the Olympics. The Olympics are terrific. If you've never been to an Olympic Games, put it on your bucket list. It's fabulous. But the Olympics is a made-for-TV drama. And the best place to watch the games is on TV. But if you're in the city and you've never been to a games, go. It's fabulous to see.
Great. Well, thank you very much to both of you for filling us in.